Welcome to What's Your Story tonight. My name is Catherine Mwangi. A great episode awaits us. Actually, it's a two-part series, so we want to talk about trauma. What is trauma? How do you identify you have it? We're all broken in some way, but before we get to that level of awareness of what you're dealing with, it can be a journey. So our guests today, including a very vibrant audience, have the opportunity to just teach us. And we are going to be there just gleaning, learning. And as well, if you want to be a part of this community, because this is what now we want to start to get to, where we bring in these people we can learn from, and you be a part of that, so you have the opportunity for Q&A. Thank you, first of all, to the management of the Vanguard Lounge for allowing us the space, the opportunity to just tape this show from. You have treated us with such great hospitality, and we are ever so grateful. So come with me, let's go start this show.
I was dealing with debt, I was dealing with money problems.
Yes.
So the relationship, when it ended, it just triggered a snowball effect.
A parent should give their own child attention when they are behaving well, so that the child doesn't have to misbehave to get your attention.
I grew up with a mother who was not emotionally available. So you might find yourself you're attracting even emotionally unavailable partner because you yourself you're not emotionally available.
Your parents might not be able to give you what they didn't give you.
Yes.
In any case, you have to accept whatever happened, and you can't change.
Yes.
Even if you get into therapy at 30s, at 40s, you can't undo what was done.
There's something that you spoke about, the children be parenting their parents.
Yes.
You've been there, done that, and actually in that space, because most of our parents, for lack of better word, maybe they didn't know any better. We know better, right? Because
Yes.
exposure and everything out there.
Yes.
But what happens when that's why we have these parents who are facing through depression. They're still having depression. They're taking medicine for diabetes and all those kind of things.
Yes.
How do we help them? Wow. How? They're 70, 75 years. How do we help them now so that they can also live a longer, satisfying life? And then another thing, would you kindly speak more, give more closure about trauma bonding in relationships? I'd like to know more about that, because I've had a couple who've bonded through that, but they divorced. So but she later came on to realize, oh, by the way, it was trauma that brought us together. This is what happened. This is actually, she went through violence, and the guy that she was dating, who became her husband, the father also used to hit the mother. So he ended up hitting her. That's why she came out of that. And my last question is, we're really having children who are committing suicide. And a very sad story, it happened in February, close to my family. We lost a 21-year-old. It was, and this is what happened. She was in campus, fell in love with a lecturer who came from Brazil, bonded. The guy promised to marry her and take her to Brazil. So she went and told the mother. The mother's like, you're too young, 21. He even met the Brazilian, was like, please, could you just leave my baby to grow? She's still growing, she's in campus. I think she was third year. But then, she ended up, I think she wanted the mom to learn a lesson. She went and bought, I think, medicines for pressure. Pressure is bad, yo. By the time she was being taken to the hospital, pressure was... They tried everything. There was only one medicine, and it had to be verified. Why do you need this medicine? So that we can bring her pressure down. But sadly, right now as we're talking, she's 6 feet under.
Thanks for that, and thanks for being so open with your personal story. It's tragic. Doc, let's go to question one. Even as Zam and Danish are mulling over the other questions. And I really liked it because we always say, yes, my dad didn't do this, well, apart from the one who was sung for. Hey. So, but my dad should have, my mom should have, my mom, and and you said we have to reparent our inner child. But I like how she flipped it. And she said, so how can we help them? So yes, they've carried this through all those many years, and she still has that heart of, I would want even their latter years, how can we help them to also now start to be whole or feel good about themselves? Is there a way? Does that happen?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Because when you're dealing with an adult, you can only suggest so much. And at times, we're having Generation Z able to stand up and tell their parent, I can't do this anymore. If you don't want to do therapy, I have to move on with my life. And the parent feels it's selfishness. It is, but that might be the thing that will push your parent to realize there's a problem and work towards healing. But you can only suggest. So we've dealt with children of parents who have, for example, been using alcohol. And you find the relationship, you might find one of the parent was the enabler, and this child grows up having that model as a relationship. So when you're attracting an abusive man, you don't realize you're just doing what you saw at home. What you saw your mom going through is what you're attracting. So there's a lot of dynamics that modeling is very key, that whatever you see, if you don't heal, you're likely to repeat the same. And the role of the father is as important as the role of the mother. Because you see, you're setting an example to who your daughter will be looking up to. So if a daughter grows up thinking it is okay for a man to beat his wife, then they will accept the same from their spouse.
Yeah.
So all in all, the young generation is aware of their mental health needs, is aware of things going wrong at home. You can suggest to your parents, I think you need therapy, this and this is not going on well. And for the parents also, we're having parents of my generation who are enmeshed with their children. So they don't realize that my son, my daughter is now an adult. I need to find a job for myself. I'm no longer, I cannot continue parenting a 25-year-old, a 30-year-old. So you have parents who had only 2 children and their children have moved out and they think that is still their business. Instead of finding things to do, they continue enmeshing, wanting their children to live their story, and you end up worsening the relationship. So those are things you need to be keen to. And as an adult, you can only push them to do this much. You need to realize you cannot save the world. So you only suggest, and if you cannot, then you draw boundaries. This is what I will take, this I can't take.
You might be putting so much focus on trying to fix your parent that in the process you forfeit your own goals, your own dreams.
Yes,
and when you're not okay, you're all just going to transfer that back to them. So what I now say is that the primary responsibility I have is to my mental health,
Yes.
to my well-being, to
Yes.
my progress.
Yes.
Then when I have grown and I'm great and successful, then out of the shade of this big mugumo or ngau tree,
Yes.
birds can find shade.
Exactly.
But if you're like this small tree that you're trying to grow, but the sun in akuchapa, huku character development, you'll never grow, you'll never offer shade to anybody, you know.
Yeah.
So the primary focus is on to you. So for me, I made a very serious decision about, so my dad used to really tell me this, which before sounded very nice to my ears. You know, you're the light of this family. I said, no, I'm not the light. You are the light because these are your children, this is your home. I don't have a home. So he stopped telling me that. So, you know, that is being, we're saying you're being fattened before the slaughter. So then what comes on is more responsibility on you, you know. So my mother also always is, she's the one who calls me, so have you visited your siblings? Because she knows I'm the one who visits them.
Yes.
I said, okay, so you guys are delegating your responsibilities on me.
Yes.
While my siblings are moving on, me here I'm stuck. So now, me, I'm putting myself first. If I don't have the money to give, I just say I don't have.
Yes,
And I without batting an eyelid.
Yes.
Right now, I'm focusing on my financial wellness, on my mental health, on my family, on my boundaries, on the things I want.
Yes,
When I'm okay, then maybe that's the way, because I was very attached to my family and I really saw myself as the hero. You know, the ones who, I was the first one to go to the university, first one to break many of these barriers, to go abroad, all these things. So, you know, everyone kept on telling me, you know, you're the one who lift us. I said, no, Jesus will lift you.
Amen to that. And
Not me.
yes, what to say, to touch on what he has said, it's so powerful because my father died when I was 17. 3 months before he died, he gave me the family mantle. I'm the second born. Skipped my mother, skipped my firstborn sister, gave it to me. When I look back, it's not something to brag about. before I went through a healing journey, I thought, oh, my father really loved me. You know, like, wow, I'm the hero here. Hell no, I was a parentified child. You understand? And those are the things that really took a toll on my mental health. So I was under so much pressure. I am the family savior. I am the family hero. I had to work like a donkey. I had to take myself through school. I had to work, toil. I was a workaholic. I took my siblings through schooling. I was like, even my mother was not taking any responsibility. I was the de facto mother and father in that home, paying all the bills, doing everything. Then years back, you look back, you're like, where is the appreciation? None whatsoever. You have a wake-up call. Your responsibility is to yourself. Now I'm focusing on, and even to detach from this kind of dysfunctional family enmeshment, there will be a lot of backlash. You have to be very strict in terms of your boundaries. I tell people right now, boundaries, boundaries. When I talk about trauma and healing, boundary is so important, setting boundaries.
Yeah.
Boundaries, emotional, financial, spiritual. You understand? There are different types of boundaries. And right now I've had to detach, slowly exit from obligations. I sat down and wrote, like, how much money am I paying to these obligations? I was paying so much money, to a point even I'm not able to pay things for my daughter, to a point where I'm raising entitled brats. You understand? So I had to detach. There was a lot of backlash, a lot of fights, which were even affecting my mental health. Two instances I was almost suicidal because of now the fights got so nasty. And then I had an aha moment. I'm like, one of the key factors that are affecting my mental health is family dysfunction. So I went back, I was like, I was a scapegoated child in a dysfunctional family. And I've had to, as part of these roles that we grew up with, the savior, the golden child, the scapechild, you have to detach from those roles.
Yeah.
Part of healing also, I had to kind of like go no contact with my mother because I realized we were enmeshed. And I had to kind of like detach, grow no contact for some time, set strong boundaries. She wants a relationship with me. I told her it will happen organically. I don't want it rushed because it's 23 or almost now, I'm 40 years of trauma. You understand? The relationship is not going to be built overnight. I cannot save my mother's, one of the things with the mother wound, daddy wound, you cannot save your parents. You cannot rescue them. They have to decide, like what the doctor has said, to either go through healing, to heal. If they do not want, you'll have to accept this is a done story.
Love
Yes,
it.
yeah.
Dr. Catherine, so the question on she lost a close family friend who was denied the chance to go with her lover to Brazil. So she committed suicide. And her question is, like, what is the what to do?
Depression, suicide could be as a result of unmanaged depression, or it could be as a result of not adjusting to extreme stressor. So there are many factors. And that's why we say people need to learn life skills. So like if there's a broken relationship, how do you even assert yourself against what your parent is saying? And I'm not saying that this parent did not have a point in saying you're only 21, that she needed to consider that. And also, again, your mom can't tell you that if you want to get married or you want to move on, they cannot stop that. But you find when somebody is looking for affirmation from their parents, affirmation from their spouse, then they get confused until you reach a stage where you can do with your own affirmation. And listen to other people's opinion is equally important. Analyze and make your own decision. Not, I have to do this so that I can be affirmed by my mother. I have to do this so that my spouse can affirm me. I have to do this so that my child can affirm me. So I think when people reach that stage, then that's when you can say, this is the boundary. Yes.
I like something you've said, which has enlightened me, that it's not that case. Like, we can't just judge and say, because she was denied being together with this man, that is why she... No, there are other factors, side and root, that could have contributed. So we should never judge it as this is why. Yes?
So Catherine, I was part of the team that developed Kenya's suicide prevention policy by the Ministry of Health. And in these instances, it's also good to offer practical.
Absolutely,
so
yes.
One, there's Befriend Us Kenya. So if you're at risk or you have some suicidal ideation, there's Befriend Us Kenya. you can reach out to them. You can check out the Ministry of Health. They have a department on mental health, Ministry of Health, Department of Mental Health. They have a lot of resources, prevention, because death by suicide is almost 700,000 people die by suicide globally. So, and it's got a huge burden on many other issues, socioeconomic. For example, if somebody who was the breadwinner dies by suicide, we're not just looking at the death, we're looking at also the other consequences of that. So it's a massive public health issue that we need to do that. Last but not least, we don't say committed suicide, we say died by suicide. Why? Because when we say committed suicide, we are denoting a crime. So for example, when somebody is having a heart attack, we don't say he committed a heart attack. When somebody is having malaria, he committed malaria.
Got it. I get it.
So we say that, and why this is important is because right now there's a lot of mental health advocates who are pushing for the repealing of the penal code that criminalizes attempted suicide. Because in Kenya, it's the most absurd thing that attempted suicide or death by suicide statistics are released by the Department of Criminal Investigations. It is abnormal that a public health issue is being handled by a criminal investigation. So I think partnership with the media, advocates, we need to push so that then we repeal this section, so that when somebody attempts suicide, they don't say because they're afraid they'll be arrested. But when they attempt suicide and they need medical help, then they can go. Also, when somebody goes to a hospital and the insurance providers know that it was attempted suicide, they forfeit the cover. So you see why it's important that we decriminalize suicide.
Yes.
So we destigmatize, we decriminalize, because I've seen a lot of church people saying that if we decriminalize suicide, we're going to allow it. No. What we are saying is remove it from the law, so that medical cover will cover people, so that people can find help, and so that we can have statistics and resources that then will be channeled into tackling this major public health issue.
And we have seen our Chief Justice talk in that direction. And recently I saw a case where a magistrate says, I will not take you to jail, I will send you for treatment. And in Mathare Hospital, in the forensic clinic, we've been seeing many people brought in because they are charged with attempting suicide. At the end of it, they end up getting treatment. But by the time you get treatment, you've been in remand for a month. It's not fair. So again, we need to make sure that we have life skills, our self-esteem is good, we have worked towards it, so that whenever there are these disappointments, life is full of disappointments. How do you bounce back?
Right.
I think that's the key thing.
And we'll come to that. I want her to answer trauma bonds.
Yes. So trauma bonds, my first marriage, the result of, I was blessed with a daughter, was a trauma bond. And I didn't know it was a trauma bond. I mean, my ex-husband had lost the mother, had lost the dad, you understand, had lost my father, almost similar background. And we found ourselves in this enmeshed kind of like, oh, I'm the helper, you understand, like I'm the fixer. We had issues of drug and substance use as well. So this kind of enmeshment, this kind of like trauma bonds, you understand, which I didn't know then. So if you don't heal, you'll find yourself attracting certain kind of dynamics, which when you heal, you'll not be able to attract that. I was comfortable to be on my own. I focused on myself, on my healing, on my career growth, on my hobbies, you know. And then I said, I'm not going to be jumping from one marriage to another marriage. And that is what is happening also when I look at my community, the Somali community. You're dealing with women now who are jumping from one marriage to another. It's a crisis at the moment. You're seeing a girl who's like 25, 30, she has 5 kids from different fathers, 5 different fathers, you understand? This kind of environment is going to be very traumatizing for these children, you understand? Meaning like, it's like in the evening, call your father, you understand? It's like chaos and disruption. Or we're dealing with cases where the mother dumps the children with the mother, right? With the grandmother, and then for her to be able to remarry and to move on with her life, you understand? So you have to heal. I said, I found myself in this situation. I was an S student from high school, you understand, gone through good schooling, you understand? And schools, they give you structure. So once you're out here now, this is where the real tests takes place, which now we'll be talking about life skills,
Yeah.
communication skills, so many skills, you understand, being resilient. So now I had to sit, I had to heal, I had to even do my list in terms of what I like to attract in a partner. And I said, let's, I'm not going to look for that person. I'm busy living my life. I'm busy doing things, you understand? And I'm okay if it doesn't happen. It's not the end of the world. And then you see when you've healed and you're in that higher, I call it higher vibrational energy, you're able to attract somebody from that level and you're able to build something healthy. And right now when I look at my life, even conflict is sorted out so well. We sit and we talk. Oh, you went here and you didn't call me. You understand? Okay, sorry. Like, what can I do to be better? You understand? You understand? It becomes so seamless. These kids who grew up, my daughter was coming from a toxic environment. Now she's having a father. Might not be the biological father, you understand? But she's being raised in a healthy environment, and this new dad is going to model what healthy is. I've seen the girl's confidence blossom. I've seen our relationship blossoming. And I'm like, wow, it was a price to pay, but it's worth it. You understand? And the younger one who's coming now, she's 4 months, she'll grow up in a healthy environment. So we have a responsibility, and that's why I'm so passionate about kids. Because let's not destroy these young, lives by inflicting them pain, by mishandling them. Kids are so wonderful, like what doctor has said. Let's affirm them. Let's show them love. Of course, we have stressors of life. I, as a working lawyer, I deal with a lot of stress. When I come home, I know, like, hey, when I'm at the door, like, problems and challenges that I'm dealing with, it ends here. When I'm coming home, I don't bring my stress to my kids. One of the reasons that I had an aha moment, one day I came from work, I was very agitated and I was dealing with so many things, and I started beating my child. And I was inflicting the pain of what my mother had done to me. Then I looked at myself, I said, oh my God, I'm turning into my mother. I'm going to be my child's first bully and, abuser. And I said, no, I'm a sick person. I need healing. And that's when I decided to heal myself. And these days we sit and we converse, and she tells me, Mommy, no beating of kids. These days we don't beat kids, we talk.
Yeah.
And we have a very good relationship. And this is what we are talking about, conscious parenting. Because you were beaten does not mean now you have to beat. You understand? Dynamics are changing.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about beating, actually you're advocating for violence. And you're teaching these kids violence is okay. Can we address, and these children, when you're dealing with them, their brains are undeveloped. What are you punishing? Bad behavior? There is no bad behavior. This is a child. You need to nurture them. So you have to be a very conscious parent in terms of nurturing, in terms of modeling good behavior.
We have to take a very short break. We'll be back in a bit.
Men are still considered for jobs. And you are telling me that I'm empowered?
We gotta interrogate the sort of empowerment that we push, especially in our society.
What we need now are trauma-informed institutions.
We are happy that the younger generation is now able to stand up for mental health. Let's push to have these services available to everybody wherever they are.
You are watching your favorite show, What's Your Story, on KTN Home with Catherine Mwangi. And today we are having an important, quite an insightful and thought-provoking conversation, which is overcoming trauma. You don't want to miss what is coming up. I'm Pitster.
Trauma is in society. It is something that we cannot run away from. The question I will ask is this: then if the law from a legal perspective is there to address a certain vice in society and trauma is in society, what then will be the place of the law in addressing trauma and ensuring that all the necessary players are protected? Because the sole purpose of the law is to protect everyone. So what will be the place of the law for us to have a trauma addressed and everybody is protected? Number two, we've talked about parenting. We've seen how trauma will affect both parties, that is the parents and the children. And we also are aware that the law is acting in the best interest of a child. So be it you are traumatized as a parent, when the law is subjected to that case, it will always act in the best interest of a child. Then, if that law is not technically looked into, how will be the children now be protected, or what is being done by the government or the law to ensure that the children are protected, the parents are protected, and any person who is involved, be it a counselor, a doctor, a psychiatrist, is also protected as they play their roles in ensuring that trauma is addressed in society.
So to answer your question, there's a guy called Gabor Mate. So he's an expert on trauma. What we need now are trauma-informed institutions, from schools to churches to mosques to temples to homes, you understand? Workplaces. Number two, policies and laws that, you understand, like this issue of decriminalizing suicide, very important from a legal framework, which we need to work on and to push this agenda. Issues of insurance covering, like you'll be shocked. When I went through therapy, it's not covered by insurance. You have to pay from your pocket. Therapy is not cheap. So a lot of people will not be able to access this kind of services unless they're able to pay for them. Yes.
Also add on to that from the mental health advocacy aspect. And it is, mental health is your right, just like any other right. So you have a right to access the highest standards of mental health care. And the push for decriminalizing suicide and decriminalizing substance use disorders has been ongoing. For example, I was part of the mental health task force, where we also recommended making sure that some of these offensive laws are amended, and it's in the process. And that's why you've heard that the CJ has also put on their weight that suicide, and this was also advised by the Shakahola deaths, where you found that people who have been brainwashed to the point of not eating, and they are starving, they are dying, and they are being put in a remand instead of being taken to a hospital to make sure their physiology is worked on. So laws are changed by advocacy, because you see, the lawmakers might not have all this information. So it is all of us, you and me, to advocate for some of these things, to push until they are done. What the insurances do is actually breaking the law. But they make sure they do it so technically, and the lawyers here know that when you're signing the contract, you see, like those software contracts, you read, and at the end of it, you have to agree to be allowed to use. That's the same case with insurance. They put it somewhere that they'll not cover suicidal attempt, they will not cover substance use, even the international insurances, which when they are in US or in UK, it's a totally different story. They come to Kenya and they'll always put in that clause. So that is breaking the law. And we keep saying, as mental health advocates, if the two of us agree to commit a law, then that is still not allowed. If we say, let's kill each other, will that pass in the law? So the same way you tell me I signed a contract that I'll not be covered if I attempt suicide, we were doing something illegal. We were discriminating. So I think we need advocacy to change some of those things. Because yes, if a doctor writes in a medical form, claim form, that it was anything to do with suicide or anything to do with substance, it will not be covered. And that's breaking the law. That is discrimination. So we have to keep pushing.
Okay. So covered. Let's get your question. Yeah.
One thing being a single person is a very strong take to be on. It's hard to be single. We also need the moral support and whatnot, yeah? So also the part that he said, he needs to take time not to find just someone to be an enabler of, sasa mimi sipendi kufanyiwa hivi, mwenye atakosa kunifanyia hivi ndio tutaezana na yeye, you see? So that part. Also on the trauma, mostly I believe that the trauma, as much as men wanasema, it's so much on men. For the ladies, imekuwa maybe from vile tumelelewa. Like for me, my parents are old. my mom passed on when she was 70. So, and then my dad is almost 80. So you find like men, me according to my view, men wameinuliwa juu. As much as unasema ati wasichana they are empowered, that's not the case to most of the people. In which way? Unaweza pata, if it's me na my brother, si ndio? From time nimekuwa mdogo, tuko hapo. Mimi, kama tuko na yeye, I'll be taught to serve him. Si ndio? But he will never be taught to serve me. Are you getting the... Yes, yeah. Unaget? Like, hiyo ni kitu imekuwa. Sawa, saa hii inaweza kuwa mental health na nini ime-affect men so much. But now from the upbringing, you find it's hard, like, usibehave kama mwanaume. Unaona? Like, usijibizane, usifanye kazi za wanaume. You see, vitu kama hizo. Like, kuna vile unafaa ubehave, vile chali haya. Hata osha vyombo, si ndio? Kuna hiyo generation yetu, sisi si Gen Z, si hiyo ingine. So, saa hii ndio wa mama, like me, I have a kid. It's a girl, so sijui vile nda behave na a boy. I expect a boy, pia oshe vyombo.
Yeah.
Unaget?
Yes.
Pia yeye afanye each and everything. Sasa mimi, mimi I'm expected to wash the utensils, and maybe when it comes to a man's job, like kufunga ng'ombe, if I don't do that, I'll get hit. Unaget? Yeah. But yeye hata ambiwa oshe vyombo. Are you getting what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's just, I don't know how the empowerment is coming. I don't know. Sijaione bado. So we know that women are being empowered. And then the other not wrong side, the girl child being empowered. Not everyone is empowered. Do you know that?
Yes.
Many of the ladies ndio wanaishi under poverty level.
Yes.
Tuchukue hapa ndani, si ndio? Not every girl akona ile do iko juu. Maybe tuseme maybe ni 1 2 3. Una get?
Yes.
So, kwa job market, men are still considered for jobs. Mimi nimejaribu jeshi for so many years before nimepita hiyo miaka. Umeget? But singechukuliwa, wanachukua machali 20, madem ni 5. Why? And you are telling me that I'm empowered? Unaget? Sawa. Tukienda kwa kazi mimi na the lawyer, my friend here, tuko na the same credentials, but him being a man, he gets the job. Where is the empowerment? Sawa, we are empowered. Hatukatai, we are better from ile time tulikuwa, si ndio? But it's not haijafika pale. I just want to get a clarification. There's a nasikianga kuna shrink. I don't know if it's the wrong word. Maybe you'll correct me, doctor. Kuna shrink, kuna therapist, kuna counselor, kuna psychiatrist. Inakuwa aje like therapist ndio ako anaanza bila mimi maybe leo nimekasirika I need to see a therapist or a counselor. Una get? So paraphrase on that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I really agree with you that women are still disadvantaged to some extent. That the example you've given that you have homework, 2 kids have come, and this happens a lot in the country. You've come home, you have homework. The boy is allowed to sit and do his homework. The girl is supposed to go and cook. So that is discrimination. But now we've reached a stage where maybe at my age, I'm able to work and I'm able to bring an income. And now when you're dealing with a man who is finding a woman who might even earn more than they are, then they do not know how to respond to that. And we're having a challenge. For example, I was managing a lady who told me where her problems began was because her husband lost his job, and because she was still employed, he found excuses. Why are you coming home late? And she wasn't going anywhere else. After work, she would just go home, but she had to take 2 vehicles before reaching home. And he told her, no, because you cannot come home early, you have to stop working. And she had to move. So this man was getting threatened because the woman is earning and he's not earning. So she looked back and said, if both of us are not earning, then what will happen to our children?
Yeah.
So yes, I agree, women still earn less. When you go on maternity leave, for 9 months, you're losing experience. When you go for the next interview, you'll be sitting with a man who has 9 years of experience, 9 months of experience, and you've been at home. So you're not going to be at the same level. An employer looks at you and says, this one is likely to be on maternity leave, let me take the male. So there's that discrimination. Worldwide, it is known that women earn less for the same job compared to the man working the same job. So those are clear discrimination. But now in our setup, we are also reaching a point where when this man now finds this woman who is able to stand that and be able to earn and be able to demand for to be treated well, they
Yeah.
can't handle that.
Yeah.
So we are also reaching that stage. Yes.
Yes.
Now I've even forgotten the other question I was supposed to about the therapist, the counselor. Really, it's about access. There are people who can easily access a doctor, a psychiatrist, so they'll go to them. There are those who will, their primary access is the teacher. There are those, the primary access is the pastor or the priest. So really it's about the access, but definitely if you reach a stage of suicidal thoughts, severe depression, definitely you need a doctor to treat you first before you can be able to reason out and do cognitive behavioral therapy, for example. So there are some extreme cases where you need medication, but if it's mild, then you can start with therapy alone. But a good therapist also knows when to bring in the doctor. A good pastor knows when to tell you you have to go and see a doctor. A good teacher will be able to tell you, now this child we have to refer to a doctor. We've been talking to them, but this is not working.
Yeah.
Yes.
Quickly add on to that so that I take a question there.
We gotta interrogate the sort of empowerment that we push, especially in our society. Empowerment must be culturally, environmentally friendlier. So for example, for me, the sort of empowerment I wanna push in Africa is what I call Ubuntu. I am because you are. Because I think we are sometimes forgetting that if you are empowered and I'm empowered, we are good. But if I'm not empowered and you are empowered, or if I'm empowered and you're not empowered and stuff like that. Then secondly, I grew up in the rural Kenya, was raised by my mother. This idea of washing dishes and cooking, it's actually quite strange to me because all of us were raised, we were 3 boys and 4 girls, and we were raised like all the same. None of us was ever favored and said, oh, you're a man. And so I don't want to use my lived experience as the standard because I know that that's not their lived experience. My point is this. Let us push for holistic wellness of society, where we say that if Odongo is not okay, I am not okay. Because the idea that one person can be okay, then others will suffer is not sustainable.
Yes, yeah.
Then to the lawyer, we are moving away from what we call one-dimensional careers, where lawyers make laws. Those laws, you make them for cows or for people. You make them for people. So you need to involve the sociologists, the psychologists, the psychiatrists, so that we make laws that are holistic.
Yes,
In the suicide prevention policy, we were even looking at agricultural specialists. Why? Because the leading cause of death by suicide is through pesticides. So if you don't involve these people who are in agriculture to tell you which pesticides are more common here, then you're going to do what? You're going to make the law. Then this law, you realize like what the Sexual Offences Act law was passed after Fury. Then they realize that, oh, by the way, a boy who's under 18 has consensual sex with a young girl who's under 18, the law perceives the man guilty.
Yeah, it's
You
strong.
see, because it's not a culturally sensitive law.
Yes, yeah.
Another thing also, our lens of always seeing things from a criminal justice perspective. This pass a law, this pass a law. We're not thinking about rehabilitative systems, alternative dispute resolution mechanisms,
yes.
embedding societal solution that can help us because we are Africans. And these things, before the white man came and imposed a European constitution on us, we had our own systems and it worked perfectly well. Why don't we borrow this? Why do we always feel like we got to pass the laws and make them nini? So that for me is what I'm saying. I want to talk to you, Wangari, and this is my very passion. We need to do a bit more conversation between genders, between men and women. There's a lot of us who have held bad beliefs about one another and they're all fed in the media. So you have made a narrative, men are deadbeat, they are unavailable, they are all this. Women are like this, gold diggers, everyone has a sponsor. Well, if you realize the agenda setting role of the media is extremely powerful, but media uses what we call a worst case scenario to generalize society. So one man has done one thing, all men are like this. One woman has done this because media says where it bleeds is where we follow. So we say that if a dog bites a human being, it's not news. But if a human being bites a dog, then it's news. But how many times do human beings bite dogs? Very few. But those are the ones that make news. So let's get out of the media and talk. As genders, talk, intergeneration, talk with experts so that we can bridge the gap.
So you've given us the next topics, but I need one question. We have totally run out of time, and I have to get his. I'm really sorry, really totally ran out of time.
You said that therapy is so expensive, consultancy and everything about it. So is depression for people who have money, or how can I put it? Are the people down the chain also access the therapy? Because what are you doing to make sure those who are down there also get the therapy sessions.
help.
Yeah.
Okay. Doctor, very, very quickly.
Yes, so you heard recently that the Ministry of Health is coming up with a program where they train community health workers. And we have programs from the Ministry of Health on mental health for the community health workers, where that community health worker is able to identify this person is drinking a lot, this person is sad, this child is not okay, and then link them up for treatment. We know KMTC now trains nurses and clinical officers to pick out mental health problems. When they are in the upcountry, then they'll be able to pick out that. But we all know that the mental health in the counties is not good. We know Madari Hospital is now having psychologists. You can pay 500 shillings and have a therapy session. But again, 500 shillings is still a lot of money to some people. And again, how do you travel all the way from Kitui or Turkana to come for therapy in Madari? So we still have those gaps, and that's why you have heard many of us keep advocating that mental health, you cannot be healthy if you do not have good mental health. So I will not say I have no malaria, I'm healthy. A mother who is depressed will not take the child for immunizations. So even if you bring all the vaccines and I'm depressed, I will not take my child for immunization. So likewise, a mother who is depressed, they will not bring up a child who has good self-esteem. So again, you have a child who is traumatized from childhood because the mother was not treated for depression. So we have a lot to do, but we all need to join into it. And we are happy that the younger generation is now able to stand up for mental health. Let's push to have these services available to everybody wherever they are.
Okay, thank you so much. 1 minute each for your final remarks, just really like even 45 seconds. Zam.
My prayer is for Kenya to be a healed nation. I mean, we're having the visiting delegation from UK. When we look at certain communities, they're dealing with trauma of colonization, you understand? Substance abuse. So collective healing needs to happen, you understand? My prayers are for a healed nation. Yes, yes.
I'll donate my minutes to Dr. Catherine to tell us. We keep on throwing these words. He's a narcissist, he's all these things. He's, I have this, I'm trauma bonding. Is there a medical, who is a narcissist? And can I just decide that you're a narcissist and you are?
45 seconds.
Yeah.
I think that's something which we women would like saying, he's a narcissist. So, personality disorders, there are various personality disorders. For me, as a doctor, I prefer dealing with the issues you have rather than giving you a label. So if I tell you you have antisocial personality disorder, I give you permission to behave the way you want. But if I say, I am seeing that you lack empathy, I'm seeing that you are sad most of your time, I'm seeing you have this problem, you're not relating well, you're not solving your problems well, you're not communicating well, then I give you leeway to be able to work on that. So for me, I do not like boxing people into this personality disorder. There are various personality disorders, but even in that personality disorder, so if you say I'm a narcissist, so what? I still have to work on those challenges. So the best thing is identify the problem I have, let's work on it, and so that we can have a cohesive society.
Wow. I apologize to anyone who had a question or follow-up question. We didn't have time for it, but these are conversations we have started, and it's part of a big dream we have to do more of this so that you have your questions answered, even if it won't be answered fully, but you learned something. I'm sure you've all picked a thing or two. I like that conversation on gender so that we stop saying men, women, men. So you're advocating for a wholesome society. I like that. Maybe that should be our next conversation. I don't know. But I want to thank you, audience, for your engagement and participation. I'm sorry you didn't get to ask a question, but next time, okay, I promise. And to you, Zamzam, the advocate, Danish of the Wellness what?
Tribe.
The Wellness Tribe, getting married in a few years' time.
Amen.
Yeah.
I healed Somali.
To a healed. Okay, to a healed.
Somali people.
Yeah. And Dr. Catherine, thank you for even making it on such super short notice, but you've just dropped wonderful gems here. I'm so grateful for your time. We will have this again, okay? We definitely have to have it again. We haven't explored even that reparenting in a child. I really wanted to go there. So, and to your dad, man, that is a good example. Yeah, may fathers sing to their children. I mean, I think that does something wonderful. So, and to you watching, thank you as well for making time tonight to watch this two-part series of, we had titled it Overcoming Trauma, but I'm not sure what the title is now. The writers maybe can try, because we have just flowed. We've just flowed. Yeah. You have a topic?
No.
We just flowed. We discussed many things about our lives, really. Let's just put it like that. And maybe we may just get to trauma again, and then it will just flow. So we are not rigid. We are not. It's how it flows. We go. Thank you for making time. We repeat Sunday 2 p.m. Here on KTN, or you check on YouTube right after this. And if you want to be a part of this community, just 22151 is our SMS line. Just write and say, I want to be part of what you're building with this panelists and audience. Whichever role you want to play, just let us know, because this is the plan this season. Until next week, stay well. God bless you.